Welcome to Porch Play Chats, sponsored by the American Association for the Child's Right to Play, or more affectionately called IPA USA. IPA USA is the USA affiliate of the IPA World organization that has like 23 countries in it, so it's pretty amazing. As part of our efforts to support play, we've introduced Porch Play Chats, and these are conversations with people just as passionate about play as we are. You can find all 151 and counting of our Porch Play Chats.
It's so good. The list is so good. Sorry.
On the IPAUSA.org website. Just go to our website, click on that top right-hand button and subscribe to the YouTube channel, be a friend on our Facebook page, and magically, every Monday, a new Porch Play Chat will appear in your feed. I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm president of IPA USA. And with me on the porch is Heather Bernt-Santy. Hi.
Hello, hello.
So Heather is a regular and needs to be always a regular on Porch Play Chats because she has such a wealth of knowledge to share with us. Heather has over 30 years of experience, and she doesn't look that old, and has been living her commitment to children, their families, and their teachers. You may know Heather from her work as the Early Childhood Nerd Education podcast. So if you haven't signed up for that podcast, you need to. She's a consultant, writer, and a professor. She's held just about every position possible in the field of early childhood, like many of us. So please know there's a career path.
Yes. Yeah. That's the
Don't
message,
leave the field.
Yeah.
There's a career path. And she's dedicated to creating and curating quality resources for families and young children focused on nature, play, storytelling, and art. And today's topic is, I think, so important.
Yeah.
Play and mental health. Where do we start?
Yeah.
Heather?
Well, for the record, I'm 52.
I don't believe it. Not even. No way.
I just project immaturity. So it's hard for people to make that connection. But yeah, I did not start when I was 12. I started when I was 19.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I suggested this topic because of the work I'm trying to do on this book about schemas in children's play. And the chapter I was writing was about the benefits of play and then the barriers of play, so that we could have kind of that baseline before we go on to talk about how we can use schema theory to understand and advocate for play. Mm-hmm. And one of the benefits was going to be mental health. And I was so stuck on that section. I just couldn't. I had notes, I had thoughts, I just couldn't write anything. I was like, I'll talk to Deb on the porch about it. And then it'll all fall into place. But I ended up just taking it out of the chapter so I could finish it and send it on in the draft. But it's something I've been thinking about a lot because it's becoming one of those buzzwords, right? And I don't want to devalue it by any means, but I think whenever we get into this situation as a profession where there's a buzzword that can be used to sell products or services, we have to be really careful.
Yeah.
And so what I've seen in my experience and my looking around and poking around is that a lot of the conversation about mental health in early childhood is turning into behavior conversations.
Yes.
Like it's still a very behaviorist view. If we do X, Y, and Z, then boom, children have mental health. And when they have mental health, they'll be more compliant and easier to manage in our systems and settings. And I just feel like that's so far off base and will lead us. It will be another factor leading us away from play if we're not careful and intentional and talking about it.
I agree. And I think if we just look at the statistics from the CDC, the levels of anxiety that children are experiencing, the amount of medication children are on because of their perceived ADD or ADHD or
Yeah.
anxiety levels, the amount of childhood depression,
Mhm.
it should be telling us something,
Yeah.
that what we're doing isn't the right path.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It,
But it's like trauma. It's an important thing. We need to, if we're working with young children, we need to understand it. We need to know what to do to prevent harm and promote wellness around trauma. But so often the conversation is, and everything I'm reading, and I'm actually writing a college course about behavior and trauma right now, and everything I'm reading really places it outside of our programs.
yeah.
Trauma is something that happens at home because of bad families, and so we have to save them from that. And I see the mental health conversation kind of going along the same lines.
Mhm.
Mental health is because of something else. It's because of COVID, or it's because of screens, or it's because of not having mental well-being, or it's because of the parenting or the neighborhood, all those things. But we aren't really looking inward to our own attitudes and practices, interactions and expectations with children. And one of the things that I think falls into that is the loss of play.
Yes.
We're bemoaning all these factors outside of our programs that are negatively impacting children's mental well-being, or we're only focusing on it to get that compliance, or that social emotional learning has become sort of a euphemism for that too. But one of the things that we can connect to the increase in children's mental health issues is a corresponding decrease in play in our programs, and so that's become one of my soapboxes now. is it's not just something that lives outside of our classrooms or homes or programs. It's us too. We're in this conversation.
Yeah. And did you just see the big, oh my God, what are we going to do on the test results for 13-year-olds, where the test scores have fallen again? The awful standardized tests
Yeah.
have fallen again for 13-year-olds in math and reading. And one of the solutions is to make them come back to school 20 days earlier than they typically would, so we can drill and kill them some more.
Yeah. And I mean, that's such a classic example of doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, because we have been I mean, I'm going to speak specifically to early childhood, but I know it's also true of the elementary, middle school, older children. We've been trying this push down, get grittier, more work, more
I'm
days
going to catch you
school
up. Yeah,
for
I'm going to catch you up.
decades.
We're
And
going
our
to
test
go away
scores,
from recess.
yeah,
All of those
yeah.
crazy things.
What if we said the current system isn't working? What would a different system look like? And honestly, in early childhood, allowing more play, understanding play for yourself, and making space for uninterrupted, unstructured play in our programs is would be such an easy thing to switch. When you think about, so Peter Gray, who does great work about so many things, he had an article, I think in 2011, about the decline of play and the rise of psychopathology.
Yeah.
And he has a brand new one with some other authors that just came out. He spoke about it yesterday in the Defending the Early Years Summer Institute session, and it just came out. Not necessarily using the word play, but connecting in an evidentiary sound way, connecting that decline over the last few decades in children's mental health, and the decline in opportunities for independent activity. So in my mind, thinking about the young children I'm working with or teaching folks to work with, that independent activity is free play.
Yes.
And in one of my classes, we just looked at some sample daily schedules from early childhood programs and looked at how compartmentalized it is, and it's, 20 or 30 minutes, maybe you get 30 minutes for each thing, but usually it's closer to 20, and then it's the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and every bit of it is prescribed, or the majority of it is prescribed, and there's no opportunity for play as we define it, as Peter Gray defines it, intrinsically motivated, free, the child starts it, the child is free to end it or leave at any time. Those kinds of things are disappearing because we're worried about test scores when they're 13.
Oh my God. One of the other things I think that schema work is extremely important in getting people to recognize what they're seeing so that they value what children are doing, and how it is a critical part of development. Ellen Kogan was just on talking about music with infants and toddlers. And we were making connections as she was talking that, when they're banging, teachers start taking away their plates and spoons.
Yeah.
Instead of recognizing that that's a stage of development, that when we're singing with them, not playing a YouTube video, but singing with them and doing finger plays with them, that they're learning rhythm. And then that that's the foundational structure of being able to clap out syllables when they
right. Yeah, I was going to say we can connect all of that to
all of that.
Yeah,
but we skip that because we want them to
look like school,
do other stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of recognizing how play is central to all of that development. And so one of the things that I am constantly bringing up ad nauseum to people are dispositions or approaches to learning, which is, I think, a easier way in some cases for people to look at positive dispositions and negative dispositions and to begin to identify which ones they have in their classroom and what that means. And how they can increase opportunities for positive dispositions and decrease demotivation, frustration, a lack of feeling confident.
Yeah. And if we look at approaches to learning, like specific examples of what that means, it's stuff like curiosity, the ability to think flexibly about things, feeling like you're competent to solve problems, being curious enough, that you're driven.
Exploring your environment.
That's play, and that's mental health. Like those are also all elements of mental well-being.
Yes.
And if we think about stuff like when a child is deeply in play and allowed to be so, they're experiencing, I'll say, joy, but it may not be, that outward expression of
joyful
glory, hallelujah, that we think, but they'll experience joy, and they'll get positive feedback from what they're doing. That's going to drive them to stay with it longer, and for any learning that is happening to be deepened. But they should just have that. If we're talking about mental health and well-being, they should just have as many opportunities as we can give them to feel that way,
as we did as children.
Yes, most of us. Yeah. And if we look at our day and think, how much of this is my idea? How much of this is a child's idea? When do I see on this daily schedule or this lesson plan that they'll be able to engage deeply enough to have that feeling of joy? I think it would really be eye-opening for most of us. I mean, I definitely have had schedules that look like the ones I'm describing. When I started to learn more, I changed that. But there's just so much, and so much of some play. There's of course solitary play, and times children just want to be by themselves, or children who just prefer their own company and ideas for whatever reason. But when they're like, think about a pretend play situation, even if it's just like a little kitchen in your classroom, kitchen area, that is such deep social connection. that happens when they're pretending together, assigning roles, even if they're just saying poop to each other and making each other laugh. That's such a positive, joyful opportunity to connect with others and to feel accepted by others, which is also mental health and
Absolutely.
well-being. Like I just think that this needs to be a bigger topic than, or a broader discussion than, well, does it mean behavior will be better? I mean, side note, behavior is usually better when you just let them play anyway.
I was doing a professional development session last night, and we do this daily schedule thing, right? And I have 5 questions I ask them to answer after they've done their daily schedule. And I ask them to be as detailed as possible in their daily schedule and tell me what happens in every block. They're always siloed by subject.
Yep.
Or by
Interest
domain of
area,
development, right? They're always short amounts of time. They're always large group in most cases. There's always some teacher guidance of how many people can be in a certain area at a certain time, because they think that's classroom management. There's so many structures put into that schedule that I had a student one time who I said, let's look at this and let's talk about this. And she said, I'm going to try this. And I said, you have to try it for 2 weeks. And you want to incrementally increase the time that they have choice. Don't say it's a free for all day long, right?
Yeah.
And she did, and she came back and she said, oh my God, the accident reports diminished, the behaviors diminished, the amount of focus and attention that children had in their attention span when they were doing something they were interested in doing. I said, similar to adults, right? We're much more motivated if we're interested in the topic.
That's right. How often have we said, I don't understand why I have to go to this training?
Right. I'm not interested at all in that.
Yeah. I heard
a lot.
A year or so ago, I heard someone refer to those classroom management systems where you're moving children through centers.
15 minutes, 15 minutes.
In a certain number in each center at a time. I heard someone call that population control.
Oh my God.
About cried. Like, can we get any more explicitly prison-like and institutional in our early childhood conversation?
And so, I always challenge people who are listening to these Porch Play Chats or podcasts, I hope in the near future.
Yeah.
To not, and administrators, because sometimes teachers feel the pressure to get that lesson plan up the week before, right? When you have no idea what children are going to be interested in, or no idea where the day is going to take you, or no idea what possible thing might happen that might excite children.
Yeah.
I always say, I want you to just relax. And I want you to write what happened at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Based on what happened, not on what you planned.
Yeah.
You can still align it with standards.
Absolutely.
You can still document what happened.
As you can with, free play. You watch free play. You can make those connections if you know the information or have resources that help you see
that help you.
Yeah.
So, sometimes I feel like it's that, that pressure, we have to. And I think sometimes it's because we're not confident in who we are and what we do.
Absolutely. I do agree with that. And, a fun fact is people doing the actual work front lines with children outnumber those administrators by quite a lot. And so if we could just sort of say, if this is what we believe is important, this is what we're going to do, we wouldn't maybe have that fear and that pressure. And I keep saying this, I'm going to get in trouble someday for this, but also nobody's getting fired in early childhood right now.
Exactly.
Unless you really are harming a child, or you just didn't show up for work too many times or whatever. But for doing more play in your classroom with the current shortage that we have, I don't know that anyone's going to get fired for that.
Well, and I think and a way to approach it with administration is, what do we want?
Yep.
Do we want children who hate to learn?
Yeah.
Do we want children who are frustrated?
Yeah.
Do we want children with no attention?
Yeah.
What is it?
And I think if we use mental health as one of our biggest reasons for wanting to do this, who's going to argue with wanting to have children healthier emotionally and psychologically, and have that well-being? It's a little bit, I guess, I feel like a little bit easier if we're just saying, well, if it's a kindergarten readiness conversation, then maybe it's a little harder for us to make our case with some people. But mental health, who's going to argue with that?
No. And I think we have an opening, right?
Uh-huh.
We have the research, we have the statistics, scary though they are.
Yeah.
But they're scary because of what we're doing.
Yeah.
They're not there, and they're frightening to me for the future of those children.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what we have to do is reset. We just have to forget everything that has been pressuring us, but we have to do it through advocacy. I think every one of us, every Porch Play Chat participant should write a letter to the editor about what's wrong.
Oh boy,
we're currently doing. And it could take 100 different, there's so many.
Yeah, let's start the campaign. Let's get it rolling.
Yes, because I think until we get the New York Times to pick up on it, or the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal to pick up on it and begin to really increase the conversation.
Yeah.
And just bombard them with what's going on. And especially if we can keep it local, because then it'll go national. I think that's what we have to do. I think we do the same thing with the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. But in this particular place, what do we want? And why are we where we are? And how can we make it better?
Yeah.
I think we all have to do it. So that's one of my challenges going to be over the next 6 months, is to challenge people to write something to their local paper and say, what are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just trying to think if our local paper even has a letter to the editor section anymore. But yeah, definitely we've got to start local and make it so loud that it gets, up into the higher levels.
It's national attention.
Yeah.
Because we can be strong advocates, and we have found hundreds of strong advocates. Just imagine our power if we used it.
Yeah.
If we got parents who are like,
yeah,
this is crazy.
Yeah. So I hear a lot of people say, well, yeah, I believe in play, but parents want worksheets and letters and name writing, and some parents want us to spank their kids. Some parents want us to give them McDonald's every day for lunch or whatever. Sometimes we say no to parents, and it's because we believe their request is not in line with,
it's harmful.
Right. And so if that's your sort of, again, not trying to offer this like critically or shaming from a shaming perspective, but if that's your knee-jerk reaction to someone saying more play is better, then you need to stop and think about what's different about this request from a parent than the request to put juice in their bottle and lay them in bed with that, or lay them in the crib with that, or to spank them, or to bite them back when they bite. There are lines that we draw for things that our customers ask for.
Well, and I think the other big piece is to recognize intention. I always hope that some of these policy decisions were made with good intentions.
Oh, sure. Probably. Yeah.
Parents want their children to be successful.
Absolutely.
Parents' memory of school is probably worksheets.
And what's been marketed to them since before they were parents is that everything has to be educational.
Yes.
Or you're not a great parent, not a good parent.
And so we have to, your child needs to be in extracurricular activities. Oh my God, stop it. Not till they're 5, 6, or 7 and 1, not 3 nights a week. Right?
Maybe, depending on, right.
Yeah. But so I do think that parents perceive they're not good parents
Yeah.
if they don't have the latest technology, if they don't have their children engaged in adult-driven sports.
So that's the lens they have when they're trying to advocate for their child.
Yeah,
Everything has
and
to
we
be
need to recognize that, and we
academically.
need to hear it, but we need to say, but when we do that, this is what's missing
Uh-huh.
in their lives.
Yeah.
And I think that would be helpful.
Yeah. And we can connect this, we can extend this idea of play being better for mental health to the teachers, to the adults too, right? Because if your day is, I mean, I know there's lots of other factors, and this is, that impact burnout or, teacher fatigue and stress. But if one of the things I hear most often is that, classrooms are just getting harder to manage. Children are different now. They're harder. The behaviors are so much bigger than they were before. And, I have to keep them going, and we have to stay on schedule. And they need structure, and we interpret that as they need 20-minute blocks of change and adult direction. Yeah, that would be a stressful way to go through your day. I could see why that would burn someone out really quickly. But if we make these moves towards more play, I mean, honestly, you will see fewer behaviors that challenge you.
We promise you.
You will have a sense of being a little bit more calm because you're not in charge of everything. Everybody in one big group is never a great idea for long periods of time.
No.
So I think that this switch would also impact practitioner well-being, mental well-being, because we would have fewer of those things about our current classroom practices and academic stressors, if we understood play better and then became more comfortable.
Well, and you ask any teacher, what's the hardest part of your day?
Always behavior, right?
It's in transitions.
Oh, transitions,
which lead to the behavior.
Right. Yeah.
So when I ask them, so if transitions are the hardest part of your day, how many are you doing?
And there's like 12.
Sometimes 20.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
And I go, why are you doing that to yourself?
Yeah.
Let's think of something different,
Yeah.
right? Let's figure out how we can have larger blocks of time where children are using agency to make choices, to move freely.
Yeah.
I mean, think how much lower your stress level will be and their stress level will be.
And how improved your relationships with individual children will be.
Instead of constantly saying no.
Yeah.
Let's start saying yes.
Yeah.
How can we do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God. Heather, so we've got to keep this going because God. We're almost out of time.
Oh yeah, that happens fast.
I always with us when we get on. So give me one or two final things as we wrap up. What do we need to be more reflective about as educators?
I mean, I think a good thing we've already talked about, just that looking at your current lesson plan or daily schedule, thinking about where do children have time to be authentically experiencing joy and having some kind of control over what's happening to them, having lots of choice, having that agency. We talk about autonomy a lot, and it sort of translates into independence in tasks, self-care kinds of things. But really, if we're talking about autonomy, how much do they get to actually feel like they have control over what's happening to them?
Yeah.
And if it's not very much, where are 2 or 3 times that we can increase that?
Yeah.
Make that small change first.
Yes. And baby step it. Ben Bos would say, start in a corner.
Yeah.
Don't go throw the whole daily schedule up in the air and say, we're going to play all day.
Yeah.
Because they don't know how to do that because that hasn't been their experience.
Or if you don't truly, if you're listening to this and you really don't understand or don't feel comfortable. That's what I mean to say. What is really happening when children play? Then your next first step is to learn more about what's really happening when children play. But it's, yeah, baby steps are important. If you're just thinking, I'm going to throw everything away and tomorrow it's all play all day, and I'm just going to sit in the corner, and that's going to not be less stressful.
Yeah, it's not going to be less stressful. But the other thing I want us to, as we close out, the other thing I want teachers to remember is when children are playing, there are such rich opportunities, not for you to interfere with it, but to observe it and recognize development. That what is happening, you are in a laboratory of development.
Yeah.
And when you see it and you're like, oh my God, they couldn't do that a week ago. And it's not because you taught them something, it's because they're developing, because you're giving them space and time to do that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where the joy comes as a teacher. That was my joy.
Yeah.
Of what could they do when they walked in the door, and not because I taught them, but because they developed, because I offered time and space. What could they do when they left me? And that's what parents want to see. They want to see progress.
Yeah.
But the progress that you're trying to put on children is not giving you the results that you want. So we need to really reflect on what it is we want versus what we're doing, and what do we need to change. So of course, this has been wonderful as always. Don't go anywhere while I close this out. So to learn more about IPA USA, please visit our website at ipausa.org. And until next time, keep on playing.